My name is Sharon Altman. I'm 32 years old, and for as long as I can remember, I've been the family's so-called designated adult. You know the type. The one who gets the 11 p.m. call because someone's had too much to drink and needs a ride home. The one who helps lug couches up 3 flights of stairs. The one who signs her name on documents no one else wants to touch. It's not a title you ask for, you just fall into it. My younger sister Rachel is the opposite of me. She's 29, free-spirited, always floating from one idea to the next like life is a series of fireworks displays. And then there's Derek, her fiancé, handsome, magnetic, with a smile designed for photos. Together they're a picture-perfect couple, at least on social media. I never warmed up to Derek. He had this way of complimenting me that always stung. Sharon, it's amazing how stable you are. I could never live such a simple life. He'd smile as though he hadn't just insulted me, but his eyes. They never matched his words. Still, Rachel was in love, hopelessly, recklessly in love. And that was enough for me to stay quiet. 3 months ago, they found their so-called dream house. Sleek, modern way, out of their budget. Their combined income wasn't enough for a mortgage approval. Predictably, Rachel turned to me. We were sitting in a coffee shop when she slipped her hand across the table, voice trembling with excitement. Sharon, we just need your help as guarantor. Please. This is the one. It wasn't just any ask. This was a multi-$100,000 commitment, something that could hang over me for decades. My instinct screamed, no. But then I looked at her face. My little sister. The same girl I used to read bedtime stories to. I told her I needed to think about it. The first thing I did was consult a lawyer. Best couple $100 I ever spent. He reviewed the bank's agreement and told me it was standard. But then he leaned in with advice that I didn't expect. When you're mixing family and money, clarity is survival. Draft a side agreement. Something that protects you. So we did. A single-page document. 2 key points. If they defaulted, I could take over their equity in exchange for what I paid. A clause he called his CYA special cover your ass. My guarantee was contingent on mutual respect and good faith. Any malicious falsehood or defamation would nullify it immediately. At the time, it felt absurd. Overkill. I almost laughed when he handed me the paper, but I signed it, and so did Rachel and Derek, barely glancing at it. Sharon. Come on, Rachel had said, laughing as she signed. You don't need all this formality. You're my sister. Of course there's good faith. We signed in front of a notary. I tucked my copy into a folder at home, and for the first time I felt safe. The bank approved the loan. Rachel and Derek were euphoric, spinning in circles in their living room, planning where they'd put the couch, the Christmas tree, the nursery. They weren't ready to admit they were already dreaming about. I wanted to share in their joy. I truly did. But deep inside, there was a chill I couldn't shake. A whisper telling me that by stepping in as their guarantor, I wasn't just securing their house. I was tying my future to theirs. And if something cracked in their foundation, I'd be buried right along with it. The turning point came at something as ordinary as a family barbecue. It was one of those golden Sunday afternoons when the air smells of grilled corn and cut grass, and everyone's voices overlap like a chorus. Kids running barefoot, uncles arguing about football, my mother scolding someone for leaving mayonnaise out in the sun too long. I was chatting with a cousin when Derek slid into the conversation, a drink in his hand. He leaned too close, that ever-so-practiced smile tugging at his lips. You're always so serious, Sharon. You should loosen up. Have some fun once in a while. He let his hand linger on my forearm, just long enough for it to feel wrong. I laughed it off, made an excuse about needing another drink, and slipped away into the kitchen. At the time, it felt like nothing. Just another one of Derek's slightly too intimate jokes. But 2 days later, my phone exploded. A novel-length text from Rachel written in jagged bursts. How could you? Derek told me everything. He said you've been making him uncomfortable for months, and at the barbecue you crossed the line. You told him he deserved better than me, that he should be with a real woman. Stay away from us, Sharon. I mean it. I don't even know who you are anymore. I read it 3 times, my stomach hollowing out with every word. This wasn't a misunderstanding. This was an ambush. The accusations were too specific, too venomous. Derek hadn't just twisted the truth, he'd built a narrative brick by brick, and Rachel swallowed it whole. I tried calling her, straight to voicemail. Tried again. Nothing. A silence settled in my chest, heavier than rage, a clarity I can't quite explain. If Derek and Rachel wanted me out of their lives, then they couldn't keep me tethered financially. I opened the folder where I'd kept the side agreement, the clause about good faith and defamation staring back at me like a prophecy fulfilled. My hands were steady when I called the bank, my voice even almost detached. Due to a significant breach of personal trust, I am formally withdrawing as guarantor on Rachel Altman and Derek Jameson's mortgage application. There was a pause on the other end. Ms. Altman, you understand this will almost certainly result in their loan being denied. I'm aware. I hung up, set the phone down, and stared at the quiet walls of my apartment. For the first time in years, the weight of responsibility lifted. But under that relief, another truth pressed in. Cynthia hadn't just wanted distance. She wanted me erased. And I had just pulled the foundation out from under her dream. It didn't take long for the storm to reach my doorstep. 3 nights after I called the bank, I was brushing my teeth when the pounding began. Heavy fists against my front door. I froze toothbrush still in my mouth. Through the peephole, Rachel. Her hair was wild, her eyes red-rimmed. Derek stood just behind her, arms crossed, jaw tight. I opened the door slowly. Rachel pushed inside before I could say a word. What did you do? She demanded, her voice cracking. Derek followed silent, surveying my living room like he owned it. I leaned against the wall, arms folded. Exactly what you told me to do. I'm staying away. Her face crumpled. The bank called. They denied the loan. They said you withdrew. Sharon, you torpedoed everything. Our house, our future. Derek cut in his tone, clipped authoritative. This isn't just about us. You cost us our deposit. You've sabotaged Rachel's dream. I looked at them both, a strange calm settling over me. Are you serious? You accuse me of trying to seduce your fiancé, tell me to disappear from your lives, and you can't figure out why I'd pull out of a 6-figure financial guarantee. Rachel's lip trembled. That was personal stuff. We were upset. Couples fight, sisters fight. You don't ruin someone's future over words, said in anger. I laughed, sharp, bitter. A fight. A fight is over who forgot to buy milk. This was a public execution, and you co-signed it without a single question. Derek's phone buzzed on the coffee table. The screen lit up with his mother's name. He ignored it. Instead, he stepped closer. You can still fix this. Call the bank. Tell them you overreacted. Make it right. Rachel's hand darted out, clutching mine. Please, you're my sister. Don't let one mistake destroy us. For a moment, I saw her, not the angry woman in front of me, but the girl I used to braid hair for before school dances. My little sister begging. But then I remembered the text. Stay away from us. I don't even know who you are anymore. I pulled my hand back. No. The decision is final. I'm not a switch you flip on and off when convenient. You don't get to treat me like a predator and a bank in the same week. Derek's mask slipped. His voice dropped icy. So you're really going to let your sister lose everything? Out of spite, I held his gaze. No. Out of survival. Your dream became my nightmare, Derek. You lit the fire. I'm just walking out of the smoke. Rachel's sob cracked the air. She grabbed her purse, storming out. Derek followed, but not before throwing one last look over his shoulder, a look that promised this wasn't over. The slam of the door rattled through my apartment. I slid to the floor, back against the wall. Minutes later, my phone rang. Mom. Sharon, what did you do to your sister? Her voice was sharp, laced with the familiar guilt-trip tone. Families are supposed to work things through. Rachel is devastated. I closed my eyes. Mom, she was given a choice between me and a lie. She chose the lie. Silence on the other end. Then a sigh, heavy, disappointed. But I didn't waver. Something inside me had hardened. For the first time in my life, I wasn't the family's safety net. I was done. The silence didn't last long. Within a week, whispers started circling through the family. At first, it was subtle cousins avoiding eye contact, an aunt who usually texted me recipes suddenly leaving my messages on read. Then came the questions cloaked as concern. Sharon, is it true you've been jealous of Rachel? I heard you've been unstable lately. The words stung worse than I expected. Derek had gone on the offensive. He painted me as bitter, envious, desperate to sabotage their happiness. In his version, Rachel was the victim, Derek the brave fiancé, standing by her side, and I, the unstable sister who tried to cross boundaries. Rachel, crying to relatives on speakerphone, repeated his narrative with shaky conviction. She wanted what's mine. She couldn't stand to see us happy. The worst part, people believed them. Mutual friends started pulling back. Even Maya. My girlfriend got texts from people we both knew. Are you okay with Sharon? Is everything safe at home? Maya read one aloud, her voice trembling with anger. They make it sound like you're dangerous. This is beyond twisted. I felt sick. My logical decision to withdraw had turned into emotional shrapnel, cutting into everyone I cared about. Then came the letter. It arrived by certified mail, thick with legal weight. A law firm representing Derek and Rachel demanded that I reinstate my guarantee immediately. The letter accused me of tortious interference with their building contract, claiming I owed them compensation for their lost deposit and emotional damages. I sat in my car after work, reading it over and over, my chest tightening with panic. My neat, decisive action had just turned into a looming lawsuit. For a terrifying moment, I actually considered giving in. Call the bank, reinstate the guarantee, make the noise stop. That's when Maya slid into the passenger seat, fresh from her own shift. She noticed the letter in my trembling hands, plucked it from me, and read silently. Her eyes narrowed. They're bluffing. They have to be. People don't get to slander you and then sue you for not giving them money. Did they even tell their lawyer the full story? Her words cut through the fog in my head. Of course they hadn't. I drove home in silence, went straight to the drawer where I'd kept the notarized agreement. My hand steadied as I unfolded it, the clause staring back at me. Any act of defamation or malicious falsehood will be grounds for immediate withdrawal. It felt almost prophetic. I scanned the document, attached Rachel's furious text telling me to stay away, circled the timestamp, and combined everything into a single PDF. But I didn't send it to their lawyer. No, I sent it to my parents. The subject line was short, cold, the full story. The body of the email was even shorter. Mom, Dad, you've asked why I did this. Attached is the signed agreement and Rachel's text. She and Derek broke the terms before I ever called the bank. I didn't do this out of spite. I did it to protect myself. I'm sorry you're caught in the middle. Then I hit send and waited. For 48 hours, nothing. No reply to my email, no phone calls, just silence, heavy, suffocating. I almost convinced myself I'd made a mistake sharing the documents with my parents, that maybe they'd just dismiss it as legal jargon, side with Rachel, and double down on the guilt. But then my phone rang. Dad. His voice was different, not sharp, not angry, just heavy. Sharon. We got your email. Your mother and I read everything. Why didn't Rachel tell us she signed something like that? Because she probably forgot, and because it proves she and Derek were in the wrong. Dad exhaled slowly. She's coming over tonight. We're going to talk. That talk turned out to be the breaking point. When Rachel arrived, my father didn't waste time. He laid the papers on the kitchen table, the signed clause, the text message, every piece of evidence. My mother sat beside him, her hands clenched in her lap. Rachel, Dad said quietly, explain this. For a moment, Rachel's bravado held. She sputtered excuses, claimed I was twisting things. Derek, who'd tagged along, tried to take over, insisting it was all a misunderstanding. But Dad wasn't a man you could snow with charm. He tapped the page with his finger. This is your signature. This is your text. You broke the agreement. Tell me why. The silence stretched. Rachel's defenses cracked. Tears welled in her eyes. Finally, her words tumbled out in gasps. It wasn't supposed to go this far. Derek said if we made some distance, Sharon wouldn't interfere so much with money, and we'd still get the house. He told me she'd be upset, we'd have a fight, but then things would settle. We'd have space. We'd have our dream. I never thought she'd actually pull the plug. My mother's face collapsed. She looked at her younger daughter as if she didn't recognize her. How could you? She's your sister, her voice broke. How could you do this to our family, to her? Rachel sobbed, but it was different this time, not righteous indignation, but the hollow sound of someone cornered by the truth. The house was already lost, their deposit gone. Later, Mom told me the scene back at Rachel's apartment was ugly. Derek tried to spin his story again, framing himself as the protector. Rachel cried, insisting she was the victim. But my parents had seen enough. The line had finally been crossed. The legal threats evaporated. Whatever power Derek thought he had crumbled under the weight of signed contracts and undeniable lies. But even in my vindication, there was no triumph. Rachel was still my sister, and watching her unravel under the truth, watching my mother cry as if she'd lost both daughters at once, it didn't feel like winning. It felt like ashes. Vindication came quietly. The legal threats vanished. Derek and Rachel's mortgage was dead, their deposit gone. They stayed together, but from what filtered back through family, their relationship was unraveling into something toxic, resentment simmering beneath every word, blame leaking into every glance. They were trapped in a cramped apartment haunted by the dream home that slipped through their fingers. But there were no real winners. Some cousins, some family friends. They clung to Derek and Rachel's version of events, convinced I was the bitter sister who couldn't stand to see Rachel happy. The damage lingered like smoke after a fire. Holidays became minefields. Invitations arrived late or not at all. Conversations grew stiff, polite, and short. Even with evidence in my corner, doubt clung to me like a stain I couldn't scrub off. Maya, thank God, stayed by my side. She held me when I crumbled late at night, furious on my behalf, but weary of the endless whispers. She even cut ties with a couple of mutual friends who insisted on treating Derek and Rachel like martyrs. I told myself I'd done the right thing, and deep down I knew I had. But right doesn't always feel good. One night, long after I'd stopped expecting it, a text lit up my phone. A number I didn't recognize. I know it's not enough, but I'm sorry for everything. I didn't need to ask who it was. Rachel. I stared at the screen, my thumb hovering. I typed out a reply. Deleted it. Tried again. Deleted it. In the end, I put the phone face down on the nightstand. Some wounds don't heal. Some betrayals leave scars too deep for apologies to reach. I loved my sister once. I probably always will in some buried, unreachable way. But the truth is, when trust is broken like glass, no apology can put the pieces back together without leaving sharp edges. I lay in the dark beside Maya, listening to her steady breathing, and whispered to myself the truth I'd resisted for so long. Some contracts once broken can never be repaired. And that was both the most logical and the most painful truth of all.